because they're crowded, they have to have a system for who's deciding who gets to take what class. And so they do it quite logically. And seniors get first pick up classes, and then the juniors get next pick up classes down the line. So lots of times if you want to come into, as an example, OSU as an engineering student, before you can take more high-level engineering classes, you're required to take the basic engineering classes. And if there's a possibility in your freshman year, even though you sign up for those classes, they will be full, and you won't be able to take them. So most students who are doing engineering in Oregon nowadays have a really challenging time getting through in 4 years unless they decide to do some summer school and can pick up some things then. But a lot of times, it's not for lack of wanting to get through in 4 years or being dedicated to that. It's just that the schools are full and it's hard to get the classes you need for your degree. So $19,000 to $22,000 there. What if you go to one of the private universities in Oregon? Anybody have a guess of approximately how much those cost per semester? $52,000 I heard. Yes, that's there. So I would say your average is going to be between 40 and 50 now to get through with a room and board. So probably a lot of you are saying, wow, that just cut out the private schools off my list. What I want to tell you is don't think that way. That's really bad thinking because in general, private schools have more financial aid available than public schools do. And therefore, what you're going to consider when you make your decision in terms of cost is not what was the sticker price, $40,000 versus $22,000, but what's the actual cost to you to get your degree. So first of all, you may need to be thinking about multiplying the state college cost by 5 years and the private school college cost by 4 years to make a fair comparison. But secondly, you may get offered way more money from a private university that actually makes the cost to you and your family less than what you would have to pay at the state school. So I don't have a preference, and I'm not encouraging you to go for state schools or to go for private schools, but I'm definitely saying don't take private schools off your list because you're scared off by the sticker price. And when you get financial aid, which we're going to talk a lot about scholarships near the end of my presentation, when you get financial aid, you guys know the different forms that comes in? Grants and loans. So there's other words for grants. Some people say scholarships. But a grant is money that's given to you for school and you don't have to pay it back. And a loan is money that's given to you for school and typically 6 months after you get out of school, you have to start paying that back. So as an example, you may get an offer from one college that covers 90% of the cost of their school, and all of that offer is in grants. So of that 90%, you don't owe anything back. So yeah, you have to come up with the 10% on your own, and you could take a loan to do that, or hopefully have some support from your family to do that. But that would be very different than an offer from a less expensive school that offers you a really small amount of grants and $14,000 a year in loans. So what I encourage you to do when you make your decision is that you add up the numbers of when I finish with my degree in hand after 4 years or 5 years, what is going to be my debt? And I don't think you should make a decision based on debt, but I think knowing that clearly should influence your decision, and you should have to determine how comfortable do you feel about your earning potential. Engineers can make good salaries and have a pretty good chance of landing a job even in tough economies, depending somewhat on what type of engineering you're doing, et cetera, and what part of the country you're in. But I'm not saying you shouldn't take a loan and have debt, but you need to think about how realistic is it going to be for me to pay that back. So those are all things that you'll consider. So in terms of what classes you take at school, how many people believe that if your school doesn't have IB or AP, you can't get into a really elite selective engineering school like MIT or Carnegie Mellon or Cornell? Does anybody believe that? Who thinks you have to take all AP and IB courses? Wow, Because usually most people think that you do to get into selective universities. What I'll tell you is highly selective schools expect you to take a rigorous course load, whatever rigorous means at your school. They don't expect you to change schools because your school doesn't offer IB classes or AP classes. If your school doesn't have that system, it's okay. What they look at is, did you take the most rigorous course load available at your school? And if what was available wasn't really very rigorous in terms of math and science, did you find another way to get that? So all of you have found one other way to get that through robotics. What are other options? How can you supplement your math and science education? What are things people know about that are available to us here in Oregon?
Engineering classes.
Nick, speak up.
Well, I know that in schools you can take classes with PCC, like supplemental.
So early to college programs, those are usually called that allow you, the Beaverton School District has it, Portland School District has it, Tualatin Tigers has it, where you can take classes at one of the community colleges, usually at no charge, paid for by your high school district. That's one option. What else?
Project Lead the Way classes. Project Lead the Way classes.
Project Lead the Way. Does your school offer that?
Yeah.
And so stand up and tell the rest of the people here who maybe have never heard of that, what does that include?
Oh, that's like engineering classes for all 4 years. It's like it starts with Intro to Engineering, then it goes to Principles of Engineering and Digital Electronics, and I don't know what the senior class is yet. And so it just basically goes through a 4-year course on engineering.
So Project Lead the Way is a grant program that high schools can apply for. And if they get that grant, they can add those classes at no extra charge to the school out of their own budget because they're funded by the grant. And they get the curriculums and teachers to do that. So there are schools throughout Oregon and Washington that have Project Lead the Way options. What else? What are some other ways you could extend your math and science learning beyond what's offered at your own school? Saturday classes through Saturday Academy. Has anybody here done any of the Saturday Academy summer internship? So I'm bad at acronyms, but I think the acronym is the ASE program. It's Applied Science and Engineering. It is open to high school students starting in 9th grade. This is one of the coolest programs out there. It's available to you at no cost if you get selected. And I believe the application process for this upcoming summer is starting just around now. So you can find out about it from the Saturday Academy website. And the way it works is companies host science and engineering internships that they are willing to offer. Some of them are paid and some of them are non-paid. And you do a general application to the program. If your application clears the initial screening, then you apply to specific internships. I believe you can select up to 5 that you're interested in, and your application goes directly to those companies who then get the opportunity to interview students. So you might get 1 interview, you could get 5 interviews, depending on how attractive your application and resume were to those companies. If you're selected for the program, it's an 8-week program during the summer. You're at that company for 7 weeks, and 1 week, you and all the other people in the ASE program are together at a university, bonding with each other and getting some science and engineering coursework. They change where that is. I believe it's been at OSU that has a couple summers, the weeks that you guys all have together. Questions? There's not a specific GPA requirement to apply to that program, although I would say it's fairly competitive, and so a higher GPA is going to help. But it also requires letters of recommendation, and they weigh those pretty heavily. Question?
I think they shortened the week to like a couple of days.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, so I'm going to come up and have you say it so everyone can hear you.
I think they shortened the week to like a couple of days or something.
Oh, so that instead of being a week altogether, it's